the matter of Anambra governorship primaries in the PDP and the controversies that has generated. Yesterday, the High Court sitting in Awka fixed Wednesday to hear the matter, which has raised a lot of controversies over the last few days over who is the authentic candidate of the PDP. The case, after the expiration of the order granted by Justice Obiora Iwabunike, which was prayed by the litigant Senator Ugochukwu Ubah on the 5th of July 2021, seeking the non-recognition of Mr. Valentine Ozigbo as the authentic candidate of the PDP in Anambra State. On June 26, 2021, Valentine Ozigbo emerged the flag bearer of the PDP primary conducted by the NWC-backed election, while Senator Ugochukwu Ubah emerged in the primary conducted by the Chris Ubah faction of the party. But the big question is, in essence, who is a candidate of the PDP in Anambra State? Let's discuss this matter, everyone, shall we? I'm being joined by two lawyers, Mr. Ilemona Onoja, who is going to be speaking for Mr. Valentine Ozigbo, and Mr. Ebenezer Akimbuli, who is going to be speaking for Mr. Ubah. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on tonight. There's this confusion from yesterday, whether the judge yesterday gave a precise position on the state of affairs of the PDP in relation to who the candidate is. Let me begin with Ilemona. Give us a sense of how your side is interpreting this case, because the expiration of the court order came after 7 days, of course, as a high court, state high court. But how is your side interpreting this matter, or the case of yesterday?
Sean, thank you very much for having me. And this thing is very straightforward. This controversy in quotes, is very needless, because our law, our body of laws in this country are very clear as to the manner for the production of a candidate for an election. The PDP constitution is also very clear. Between the PDP constitution, the Electoral Act, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and then judgments given in a plethora of cases, several of them also involving Anambra State and candidates from Anambra State. A combined reading of all of these issues will lead to one simple conclusion, that one, it is the responsibility of the national executive, national working committee, or national leadership of a political party to make regulations, conduct primaries, sponsor candidates, and submit names of candidates to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. It's very clear. So it's a very needless controversy, if you will. In this instant case, the national leadership of the party stipulated regulations for the conduct of elections, sent a delegation to conduct those elections in tandem with the Southeast Zonal Congress, Southeast Zonal Caretaker Committee of the party. The congresses were conducted, a candidate was produced, very easily the candidate's name was submitted to INEC. This distraction about a state executive committee conducting a primary that is not recognized in law, is not recognized in fact, it's a needless controversy. There's one candidate of the People's Democratic Party. His name is Valentine Ozigbo. It's really that straightforward. All
right. Let me allow Ebenezer to come in. What's your own side of defense based on what happened in Awka yesterday?
Yeah, thank you, Sean. You know, I would my position is this, and it's very clear, it's very straightforward. And like my learned friend here has opined earlier on, you know, this whole thing is needless, really. It's really needless, because if you are going to, he mentioned, the National Working Committee conducting a primary and all of that. But the big question is this, that the process that produced Valentine and the process that produced Ugochukwu Ubah, which of these processes is legal? which of these processes is actually lawful? Now, let's look at Anambra, or let me start with PDP politics and PDP guidelines to providing producing a candidate for the governorship, election in any state. Now, by Section 25 of the PDP's constitution, it stipulates those that should, make a state congress from exist. If the political party, if PDP has, from the state, a former president, a former vice president, former elective. The list is long on who should, make a state congress that would, conduct a primary that will produce a candidate. Now, sometimes in 2017, there was a member that was appointed by the national to conduct congresses from the ward level to the local government level and then the state level. Now, these congresses were conducted at the ward level. It produced congressmen, it produced, candidates were elected at the ward level, at the local government level, candidates were elected by a process conducted by a member. Now, at the state level, there was controversy such that they could not conduct any congress at that level and that. Now, these congressmen or these elected, congressmen from the the ward level and the local government level are ordinarily delegates that would be present at any primary election that will be conducted by the state. Now, these were the same persons that now went to court to say we had when PDP. Okay, let me refresh now. When PDP came in and brought in a caretaker committee to say, okay, come and conduct the state congress that was altered. Now, instead of the committee to concern themselves with just conducting, the state congress, they went and chased away the duly elected, congressmen from the ward level and then the local government level. And then these guys went to court to say, no, we were duly elected. And then the court gave judgment in their favor to say, yeah, these are the duly elected people, congressmen from the ward level and the local government level. And these were the same persons that are lawful that conducted the primary election that produced Senator Ogoshikwuba. It's a lawful process.
Yeah, let me quickly, because the PDP, before I allow Elamana to coming back, the PDP has said there was a crisis. There are conflicting court judgments in that matter. And they made reference to the Section 29 of the PDP Constitution, which part of the roles of the National Working Committee is in case the subsection 2B says in case of emergency, the NWC will act on behalf of the National Executive Committee subject to ratification by the National Executive Committee and perform such other functions as may be assigned to it by the National Executive Committee. The party has said it was an emergency, it was a crisis, and which they formed a caretaker to perform that role. And the Electoral Act is also very clear as to who will present the name of candidate to INEC. It's an NWC of the party. How do you react to that?
Thank you, Sean. Really, what controversy is at hand now? Because clearly the constitution of the PDP, section 50 of the constitution states that the duty of the national is to supervise the election being conducted by the Congress. Now, the Congress, duly recognized by law, are those that were duly elected by the ward level, from the ward level and then the state level. It's a straightforward thing, Sheung. There's no controversy in all of this thing. Now, the duty of the national is to present a lawful candidate to INEC. Now, these wardmen, these congressmen, they've gone to court, they've gotten a judgment to say that they are the lawful Congress people. Now, there is no other judgment setting aside this judgment. They actually went to court, they appealed, trying to stay the judgment of Adeniyi. And then the Court of Appeal said, no, come to me.
So,
this is your argument of frivolous.
Let me allow Elemana to react to the positions that you...
Let me quickly clarify certain things. And this is a needless attempt to drag us into places where we ought not to go. But for the purposes of educating the millions of people who are listening, I will quickly clarify certain things. One, there was a judgment in 2017 that affirmed the validity of the State Executive Committee Executive Committee of the party in Anambra State. One, ordinarily, from a high court, the only place to go to alter the decision of that court is to go to a higher court, a court of appeal, and go all the way to the Supreme Court. However, in 2020, a court of coordinate jurisdiction purports to give a judgment. What's the word I'm looking for? Throwing that State Executive Committee out of office. Immediately, we have a constitutional conversation there. Can a high court act as a body to review a court, competent to review the decision of another high court? My brother lawyer will immediately agree with me that that is not the case. That is an unconstitutional exercise. Having left that, and that is a distraction, I don't want to be drawn there, but that was just for the purposes of an education. Section 50, the self-same Section 50 that he just cited of the PDP constitution, says that the NEC, the National Executive Committee of the party, is the highest body with respect to the supervision, the formulation of guidelines, the formulation of regulations for the conduct of primary elections anywhere in the political party. That highest body authorized the use of a certain category of people as delegates to vote in the election. It's not contestable. It's not contestable. Again, go to Article 31 of the PDP Constitution, 31(2)d. It says that the PDP, NWC, and the NEC has the power to dissolve a state executive body. That power was exercised. So assuming, but not conceding, that there is a valid upholding of the second of the Ugochukwu Ubah faction of the Anambra State PDP, the national body of the party has the right, has the power, under the provisions of the PDP Constitution, to dissolve that body. And it so did. Finally, Section 31, subsection 2I of the self-same PDP Constitution says that the national holds the right to formulate guidelines. He reiterates it: the right, the power, the authority to formulate guidelines. So if in furtherance of that right, power, or authority, it says here, this is what we are going to do, this is the procedure to elect our candidates at the elections, it is very straightforward. Now, if we now go there to now directly answer the question, so who submits a name to INEC? Who does INEC recognize for the purposes of conducting a primary to sponsor a candidate? In Ogwebego versus PDP, self-same Anambra State, 2015, somebody came out, somebody purporting to be chairman of the PDP, purported to conduct congresses in Anambra State, submitted names to INEC. It was accepted at the Federal High Court, at the Court of Appeal, and then at the Supreme Court. He was told that, I'm sorry, you cannot do this. It is not within your power to so do. Why are we sitting down here having a conversation
because
about
the controversy here, which he was saying, is the validity of the delegates that went to that primary, which is contestable according to the outside. That is the issue that is raising.
That issue is already resolved by Articles 31, Articles 31, 2D, Articles 31, 2I, Article 51, and then by Section 87 of the Electoral Act. Article 31 2D says that the PDP national retains the power to dissolve a state executive committee. In this case, we have 2 state executive committees, both of which are upheld by courts of coordinate jurisdiction. The PDP says we don't even want to enter this controversy of who was right or who is wrong, and dissolve both. One.
With a judgment. Sorry, Lemona, because I'll allow him to. There is a judgment, a subsisting judgment. Even whatever the decision of the party, does that override the judgment of court? But let me allow Ebenezer to come in here.
No,
Ebenezer,
there's no attempt to override the judgment of a court.
Yeah,
it's an attempt to
So
override.
let me allow you to react. Ebenezer, what's your reaction to what Lemona said?
It's a pure attempt, Mr. Lemona, it's a pure attempt to override the decision of the court. Now, there is a decision of the court that is standing, that is subsisting, that is saying these are the rightful delegates. It's not, there's no appeal on it. The attempt appeal, I mean, stay of execution, there's an appeal, but of course, there's an appeal, but of course you try to attempt a stay, which the court said, no, let us argue on the merit. Now, why don't you wait for the outcome of the appeal before you can say, yeah, this is a valid delegate or this is not a valid delegate?
But I want to ask you a very quick question before you move on. Answer me this question. Are you saying that the decision of a court of coordinate jurisdiction can stand as a review?
What I'm saying,
there was a decision by a federal high court.
Why are you appealing?
There was a decision by a federal high court in a 2017 matter.
Why are you on appeal?
Hold on. Hold on. Let us speak as lawyers here very, very quickly for the purposes that people should learn. In 2017, a federal high court sitting in Buari gave a judgment in favor of one executive body. Ordinarily, by provisions of Section 240 of our Constitution, the only way that judgment can be reviewed ought to be by the Court of Appeal. Are you sitting down and telling millions of Nigerians on television right now that a brother judge, a court of coordinate jurisdiction, can purport to review the judgment of a federal high court? That's the simple question. That's the simple constitutional issue for determination.
All right.
That's the issue that we should be resolving.
Because we need to close now, gentlemen.
That issue.
We need to close now, gentlemen. We need to leave it at that. We look forward to what is going to happen next in court. I understand that the different parties will appear in court on Wednesday, and we see what the chances of the PDP is going to be. Tomorrow, yeah.
So why don't you just wait and the courts made it clear. Let status quo be maintained.
The status quo currently is that there's Valentine Uzigbo.
No, the status quo
is submitted to the INEC. The status quo is that
INEC has recognized the fact that they are going to respect and obey for coming on tonight. Well, everyone, that's our show for today. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Akimale. Bye for now.